Welcome back to the anime realm. Today, we're diving into an epic new series, Solo Leveling. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay updated. Let's get started. The story then continues with Jinwoo sleeping in late, only to be jolted awake by a call from Gina. Hearing his groggy voice, Gina immediately knows he's still in bed and asks if he even realizes what time it is. Glancing at the clock, Jinwoo notices it's already 2 in the afternoon, so Gina quickly reminds him that her parent-teacher meeting is today. Later, Jinwoo arrives at the meeting, looking surprisingly well-dressed. Gina is stunned by how dashing he appears, prompting Jinwoo to wonder if something's wrong, but Gina reassures him it's not, that it's just unexpected. He then explains that he just had to dress appropriately since showing up in sportswear wouldn't be suitable. Gina muses about how much people can change, and as they walk through the school halls, Jinwoo garners attention from the girls around, leaving them whispering in curiosity. Gina, noticing this, teases him about not having a girlfriend yet, offering to introduce him to someone, but he angrily dismisses the idea. Later, Jinwoo meets with Gina's teacher, who is full of praise for her. The teacher describes Gina as an exemplary student and role model, noting her strong performance in mock exams. Confident that Gina can get into medical college, she advises Jinwoo not to pressure her too much, and Jinwoo agrees. But before the meeting concludes, the teacher asks Jinwoo what he would do if Gina awakened and wanted to become a hunter. Jinwoo's response is immediate and firm that he wouldn't allow it. The teacher expected such an answer and mentions she has a favor to ask. The story then transitions to Jinwoo meeting Song-yi, who is surprised to see him. Jinwoo reveals he is Gina's brother, and Song-yi quickly pieces together that the teacher must have sent him to convince her to quit being a hunter. She defiantly refuses, saying she won't quit or return to school. Jinwoo points out that as an E-rank hunter, she won't have many opportunities to earn money, and while she may have made good money as part of his assault team, that was an exception. Song-yi frustratedly tells him to leave if all he plans to do is lecture her, and she even throws his rank back at him, reminding him he's also E-rank. Jinwoo then calmly states that he's not here to lecture or convince her to quit. Instead, he asks her to follow him. Elsewhere, Jinchul greets Dongsu upon his arrival in Japan, surprising Dongsu with the personal reception. Dongsu sarcastically notes that the chief of the Hunter Association himself has come to welcome him. But Jinchul wastes no time and directly asks how long Dongsu plans to stay. Dongsu reassures him not to worry, as he won't be around for long. Jinchul, however, is skeptical, noting that Dongsu has returned to the very country he betrayed, ostensibly just to meet 2 specific individuals. Dongsu smirks, confident that Jinchul knows the truth. His visit isn't just to see them, and he eerily suggests the surveillance team should turn a blind eye to whatever happens to those 2 in a dungeon, revealing his intent to eliminate Jinwoo first and then Leo. And he confidently remarks that Jinchul's abilities won't be enough to stop him, and Jinchul simply responds that he is just doing his duty. Elsewhere, we see some monsters being unloaded from the chopper that Guild Master Choi and the others took from near Jojo Island, and then Choi briefs the chairman of the Hunter Association on the situation. He explains that the monsters had been attempting to cross the sea to reach the mainland, but couldn't sustain flight and fell into the water. Choi then warns that if left unchecked, these creatures might one day succeed in crossing over, but Gun-hee promises to do whatever it takes to prevent that from happening. The scene then cuts to Jinwoo, who meets up with Sang. Sang, surprised by the unexpected call, comments on how rare it is to hear from Jinwoo, and notices Song-yi is with him. Jinwoo then apologizes for the sudden request, but Sang assures him it's fine, though he's curious about Jinwoo's interest in observing their training. Sang then points to a nearby gate, explaining that it's a level C gate that just appeared recently. As they talk, an impatient man interrupts, grumbling that they should start the raid already since this isn't a picnic. Jinwoo glances at him curiously, and Sang introduces him as Kim Chul, and a rank hunter with the role of a tanker. Sang adds that Kim Chul is the leader of the assault team, and it's clear that Kim Chul is annoyed about having E-rank hunters tagging along to watch his raid. Kim Chul's displeasure is obvious, and Sang tries to smooth things over by explaining the team composition to Jinwoo. The raid consists of 1 rank A hunter, 5 rank BS, and 2 rank CS, making a total of 10 people, including Jinwoo and Song-yi. Jinwoo isn't thrilled about the large group since his main purpose was to show Song-yi the harsh realities of dungeon raids, but with so many participants, it might dilute the experience. Sang's assistant then advises Jinwoo to stay on the sidelines and let the newcomers gain practical experience, and Jinwoo agrees. The team then enters the gate, but Jinwoo immediately senses something off, and he notices the gate behind him behaving strangely as it begins to glow red. He then realizes what's happening and tries to escape, managing to squeeze his head out to warn Sang to contact the assault team. But then the gate pulls him back inside again. Sang then quickly contacts Beak, informing him of the red gate, and Beak immediately sets out to assist. Inside, Jinwoo and the team find themselves in an endless snowfield, stunned to discover that the gate has completely vanished, so panic sets in as they wonder how they'll escape. Kim Chul then steps forward and explains that they're trapped inside a red gate. Song Yi confusedly asks what that means, so Jinwoo calmly explains that unlike normal gates, a red gate is a dungeon where all contact with the outside world is lost upon entry, and to escape they must either defeat the boss or wait for the dungeon to collapse, and adds that the outside world cannot interfere, and the dungeon will be crawling with dangerous magical beasts. Suddenly, arrows rain down on the group. One hunter is killed instantly, but Jinwoo quickly catches the second arrow that is aimed at Song Yi and shields her from harm. The girl is stunned by his reflexes, and the team realizes they are surrounded by ice elves. Jinwoo then notes that their distance had masked their presence, and he sees they targeted the group's weakest members, and he acknowledges that if this had happened 2 months ago, he wouldn't have survived. The ice elves then retreat, leaving Song Yi confused, so Jinwoo explains that ice elves are ruthless predators known as ice slayers among hunters, feared for their brutal efficiency. Kim Chul then takes charge, announcing that no help will be coming in this place, and insists they follow his commands if they want to survive. He then claims that he can't manage the entire group, so he proposes splitting into 2 teams, arguing this will improve their chances. He warns that staying in one place risks freezing to death, and insists he can protect those who go with him. Most of the group agrees to go with Kim Chul, but he quickly singles out the weaker members, refusing to take them along, and he explains that their presence would slow the team down. He then states that 1 day in this dungeon equals an hour outside, and it could take months to defeat the boss or wait for the dungeon to collapse. And with a cold, dismissive tone, he labels them as dead weight, so he is going to leave them, but he promises to come back for them once the boss is defeated. One girl in the group decides to stick with Jinwoo, and Kim Chul thinks that's a stupid move, but she is sure that Kim Chul didn't notice the arrow earlier, and quietly whispers to Jinwoo that she noticed his earlier reflexes, convinced he's much stronger than he seems, and she thinks that he is even a rank or even higher, but Jinwoo doesn't confirm or deny it. Kim Chul then declares he'll take the main road, assuming it's the best route, so Jinwoo offers to lead his team through the forest. After some time, Kim Chul's group notices claw marks on the trees, so he confidently declares that they've entered Ice Bear territory and smugly remarks that the E-rank team will likely be killed. Soon after, they sense ice bears nearby, and the group quickly finds themselves surrounded. One of the massive creatures charges, but Kim Chul blocks the attack with his shield and cleaves the bear in half with his axe. And without hesitation, he moves to engage the other 2 bears, maintaining his confidence. Meanwhile, Jinwoo's group is stopped by the girl, who points out similar claw marks. She warns them that they're in Ice Bear territory and suggests they turn back to avoid an encounter. Jinwoo disagrees, suggesting instead that they press deeper. He explains that since this is Ice Bear territory, they'll only need to worry about the bears, which are weaker than the elves that wait outside. The girl thinks it over and realizes Jinwoo is right. No other magic beasts would enter this area because of the bear's dominance. As they move forward, the air grows colder, so Jinwoo pulls coats from his inventory using subspace magic, handing them out to everyone. The group is amazed at his ability, putting on the warm coats with gratitude. But Song Yi, still puzzled, asks Jinwoo who he really is. Jinwoo avoids the question, reminding her that he brought her here, so it's his responsibility to protect her. But he requests that she and the others not ask further questions. Just then, a massive ice bear emerges from the shadows, so Jinwoo steps forward and changes his title to Wolf Assassin as he prepares for the fight. Meanwhile, outside the gate, Beak observes the ominous red glow and concludes that this gate is bad news, and he doubts that anyone but high-ranking hunters could survive. He then places his hopes on Kim Chul, believing his rank might give the assault team a chance. But Sang informs him that in addition to the official assault team, Others entered the gate, including Jinwoo. Beak then curiously asks Jinwoo's rank, and Sang replies that Jinwoo is officially E rank, though he suspects he may have reawakened, though Jinwoo has never confirmed it. Beak isn't optimistic about Jinwoo's chances, but then Dongsu arrives with Jinchul. Beak is visibly displeased to see Dongsu, questioning why he's here when he's supposed to be in America. Dongsu ignores the question and instead challenges Beak, asking why an E-rank hunter was allowed into the gate when he isn't even part of their guild. Dongsu makes it clear he's referring to Jinwoo, leaving Beak wondering how Dongsu knows him. Dongsu scoffs at the red gate, lamenting that Jinwoo will likely die inside before he gets the chance to meet him. Jinchul, observing Dongsu's frustration, muses that Jinwoo is fortunate to be inside the gate, sparing him a confrontation with Dongsu. However, Jinchul doubts Jinwoo's chances of making it out alive. Inside the gate, Jinwoo finishes off the last of the ice bears, earning another level up. His team and the girl are left stunned and wondering who he is, but he remains tight-lipped. Later, the group gathers to eat roasted bear meat, and they are astonished that Jinwoo managed to take down so many bears alone. The girl warns that they can't afford to relax just yet, as the lair of the monsters must be nearby. Song-yi, on the other hand, is baffled by Jinwoo's behavior, questioning why Jinwoo has gone out for exercise after dinner even though he just fought such an intense battle. So she remarks on how strange he is, and the others agree. Elsewhere, we see Jinwoo standing outside the lair of the ice bears, ready to test his shadow army. He summons them, watching as they charge forward. The shadows easily cut down the bears, but some of the creatures fight back fiercely, managing to rip apart parts of his army. However, the shadows regenerate quickly using Jinwoo's mana and return to the fight. Then we see that the mages in his army provide excellent support, and Jinwoo is impressed, thinking they've performed better than expected. But he notes that maintaining them uses a lot of mana. Suddenly, the massive boss of the ice bears emerges, and with a single devastating attack, it wipes out Jinwoo's entire shadow army, draining a significant amount of his mana in the process. Left unable to regenerate his soldiers, Jinwoo summons Igris. The Shadow Knight steps forward confidently, so the bear charges at him, but Igris dodges with ease, delivering a precise slash, and in moments the bear is brought to its knees. It attempts a final desperate attack, but Igris finishes it with a swift beheading. Jinwoo observes, impressed by Igris's power. Reflecting on their earlier duel, he admits that he would have lost if Igris had used his sword. Even now, at his current level, Jinwoo believes Igris might still be stronger, and then he praises Igris for handling the fight so well. Meanwhile, Kim Chul's party faces the elves, and we see that all of his teammates have been killed, leaving him alone struggling to process what the hell just happened. He bitterly reflects on how close he was to becoming an elite member of the White Tiger Guild, only to end up in this dire situation. The sight of the elves and the remaining survivors terrifies him, and he realizes he has no chance of winning, so he runs as fast as he can to escape.
Then we see Jinwoo stands victorious over the Death Bears, showcasing his immense power as a necromancer. With a simple command to rise, shadow bears emerge from the corpses, seamlessly joining Jinwoo's ever-growing shadow army. Outside the portal, Sang explains that the strike force has been trapped inside for 3 hours, which translates to about 3 days in the portal's distorted time. Red gates are notoriously dangerous, so Dongsu concludes that Jinwoo must already be dead and begins preparing to leave. However, Dongsu halts his departure, demanding to know why Jinwoo was associating with the White Tiger Guild in the first place. Sang casually explains that Jinwoo is merely an acquaintance who wanted to observe a C-rank mission. Then, while Sang feels relieved that this answer should suffice, Dongsu shocks everyone by suddenly choking Sang. Dongsu isn't fooled, he knows Sang has a talent for identifying promising new hunters. At that moment, Baek steps forward, transforming as he tells Dongsu to stop. This only enrages Dongsu further, who dismisses Bak as nothing more than a big fish in a small pond. The two S-rank hunters then release some of their power, sending waves of terror through those nearby. Sang grows increasingly alarmed, fearing that an S-rank battle could devastate the entire area. But despite this, the tension escalates and the two hunters clash. Inside the portal, Kim Chul feels relieved after escaping the elves, but his relief turns to horror when he stumbles upon the mangled corpses of the Death Bears. The sight terrifies him, and he begins to wonder how the E ranks he abandoned could possibly be responsible for such devastation. The sheer destruction leaves him trembling, so he suspects that the ice layers might be the true culprits and quickly retreats into the forest. Outside the gate, Dongsu is impressed when Jinchul intervenes, managing to stop the escalating S-rank fight, so Jinchul humbly admits that the only reason his arms remain intact is that the two S-rank hunters restrained themselves at the last moment. Jinchul then reassures Dongsu that Jinwoo is just an E-rank hunter, emphasizing that he re-evaluated Jinwoo 2 months ago and found no reason to believe otherwise. Additionally, Jinchul explains that the surveillance team's investigation into your brother's death revealed it was caused by a magic beast. Dongsu dismisses this as a convenient public cover-up, convinced that if Jinwoo isn't the culprit, then the killer must be the wealthy Leo. Jinchul then questions why Dongsu is targeting Jinwoo if he believes he isn't the killer, but Dongsu's reply is cold and blunt. It's an excuse to kill. But before the conversation can continue, Dongsu is called away, muttering that Jinwoo is lucky. Sang watches him leave and reflects on how no one truly grasps the depth of Jinwoo's power the way he does. Confident in Jinwoo's strength, Sang believes he will survive the Red Gate. Inside the gate, Jinwoo's group sits around a fire, trying to stay warm. But their moment of peace is shattered when Kim Chul storms in, furious to see these weaklings alive and thriving. Dressed in weather gear and surrounded by blankets and food, they're clearly in much better shape than his own group. So Kim Chul gets enraged and accuses them of hoarding supplies, claiming his team died because they lacked proper equipment. Blinded by anger, he demands to know who was hiding all the gear and blames Park, suspecting she joined the weaker group because she knew the truth. Kim Chul then issues an ultimatum, counting down from 3 and threatening to eliminate them all if the culprit doesn't confess. And when no one speaks up, he screams Jinwoo's name, assuming him to be responsible and prepares to attack. However, before Kim Chul can act, Jinwoo suddenly appears and utterly overpowers him. The group is stunned by their leader's unexpected return, and Jinwoo admonishes Kim Chul for blaming others for his party's failure. Jinwoo also senses something more sinister nearby and accuses Kim Chul of dragging even greater trouble into their midst. Turning his attention to the surroundings, Jinwoo calls out to the hidden presence, stating that their aura is far too strong to go unnoticed, and he orders them to drop their stealth. In response, the Ice Elves reveal themselves, their leader remarking in disdain that one of the human scum is unexpectedly strong. Jinwoo retorts sharply, shocking everyone as he speaks fluently in the language of the magic beasts. Even Jinwoo is surprised by this ability, quickly deducing that his cheat system must be responsible. The elven leader then begins to explain their presence, revealing that one of his men sensed Jinwoo's immense power when he stopped the arrow, so the elf wanted to challenge Jinwoo to a fight. However, before the leader can finish speaking, Jinwoo swiftly chops off the challenger's head. The leader is amused by this display of brutality, but Jinwoo is uninterested in entertaining him and immediately launches an attack. The leader defends himself skillfully, and Jinwoo quickly realizes that this opponent won't go down easily. The leader, still amused, remarks that Jinwoo isn't human and questions why he's pretending to be. Jinwoo is confused by the comment, but the leader's laugh makes it clear that he knows something Jinwoo doesn't. He explains that elves are driven by a voice in their minds commanding them to kill humans, but strangely, they don't hear it when it comes to Jinwoo. This revelation makes Jinwoo suspicious, wondering if the elves' silence toward him is connected to his system directives. The leader speculates that Jinwoo might not be entirely human and encourages him to sensibly hand over the other humans. But Jinwoo demands to know why the elves are targeting humans at all. As the leader begins to answer, something bizarre occurs. His body glitches, and he repeats himself as if stuck in a loop. However, Jinwoo refuses to comply, and the leader warns that defiance would make Jinwoo their enemy and reminds him that they vastly outnumber him. But Jinwoo is undeterred and questions why the leader is so confident. And with that, Jinwoo summons his shadow army, leaving the others to look on in disbelief, wondering how such a thing is even possible. The elven leader then dismisses Jinwoo's forces as a waste of time, but Jinwoo ignores his words and presses for a fight. The leader obliges, and the two sides engage in a brutal battle. The humans with Jinwoo attempt to flee, but elven archers target them. Jinwoo demonstrates his incredible skill, eliminating the archers with ease, but despite his prowess, Jinwoo begins to understand the leader's confidence. The elves are stronger than he anticipated and are dealing significant damage. While Jinwoo's shadow army is technically immortal, regenerating his troops costs magic power. Though Jinwoo possesses a considerable reserve, it isn't infinite, and he realizes it could eventually run out, and even worse, he concludes that the elven leader is undeniably stronger than him. The leader engages Jinwoo directly, and Jinwoo quickly evaluates the situation, realizing that even with Igris fighting beside him, Barca remains an overwhelming opponent. The odds are against him, and his regular soldiers won't suffice, so Jinwoo concludes he needs a stronger force to match the leader's power. The leader then formally introduces himself as Barca, and Jinwoo returns the gesture. The two warriors charge at each other with ferocity, and Barca immediately displays his dominance. However, he's momentarily stunned when Jinwoo teleports his blade to his opposite hand mid-attack. Their exchange continues with narrow misses on both sides, but Jinwoo eventually gets pushed back. Barca expresses delight at the challenge, stating he hasn't enjoyed a fight like this in years. Jinwoo, smiling back, unleashes a massive meteor that crashes down onto Barca, catching him off guard. Meanwhile, Kim Chul regains consciousness, seething with anger. Seething with hatred, he curses Jinwoo again and grips his sword tightly, determined to take him down. Then, as Barca battles Jinwoo's magic soldiers, Kim Chul uses the chaos to make his move. However, Jinwoo, having anticipated this, orders Igris to create a dense smokescreen. Using the cover, Igris swiftly ends Kim Chul's life. Realizing too late that Jinwoo had planned this all along, Kim Chul succumbs to his last thoughts filled with regret. With Kim Chul's defeat, Jinwoo commands him to rise, and a radiant light erupts from his body as he is reborn as a shadow soldier. Barca, still charging at Jinwoo, mocks the notion that hiding will save him, but his confidence is shaken when a towering new shadow soldier emerges to confront him, forcing Barca to retreat momentarily. Jinwoo then names his newest member Iron, and the resurrected Kim Chul lets out a deafening scream. Barca assesses Iron, quickly noting after a few seconds of battle that the soldier lacks agility but possesses immense durability. Nearby, Songyi watches in disbelief, wondering if all hunter battles are this intense. Her companions assure her that this battle is far beyond anything they've seen before. Then, while Iron holds his ground, Barca declares the fight lacks challenge and demands that Jinwoo and Igris join the fray. Jinwoo accepts Barca's challenge with a smirk, and the intense 3-on-1 battle begins. Barca's overwhelming strength is on full display as he fends off Jinwoo, Igris, and Iron simultaneously. However, his frustration grows as Iron's persistent screams echo throughout the fight. So Barca decides Iron must be dealt with first, but Iron proves to be a formidable tank, enduring every blow. Barca's confidence grows as he dodges Igris' strikes, but he's caught off guard when Jinwoo lands a stab. Jinwoo is so impressed because Barca avoids a fatal wound even amidst the chaos. Barca then bristles at being underestimated, but Jinwoo commends him for surviving this long. Then, as the fight rages on, Jinwoo takes a moment to turn his attention to the rest of his clan. Barca, suddenly remembering his army, turns to see a horrifying sight. Jinwoo's shadow army has wiped out his entire clan. But despite the grim sight, Barca remains confident, certain that taking out Jinwoo will be enough to turn the tide. As Jinwoo throws his dagger, Barca mocks him, calling him a fool for discarding his weapon. However, he underestimates Jinwoo, who recalls the dagger with pinpoint accuracy. Barca barely blocks it, but his weapon is destroyed in the process. Jinwoo then seizes the moment, ordering Iron to restrain Barca. Immobilized, Barca becomes the target of an immense fire attack unleashed by Jinwoo's magic soldiers. But despite the devastating strike, Barca isn't finished. He cuts through Iron and vows to annihilate the humans, but Jinwoo counters, silencing him once and for all. Jinwoo declares the battle over, but Barca, defiant to the end, insists it's not finished until he says so. His defiance is short-lived as Iron regenerates and crushes him completely. So Jinwoo reiterates that the battle is indeed over as Barca lies lifeless on the ground. The ground then begins to tremble, but it's actually merely Iron ensuring their victory is absolute. Jinwoo reprimands Iron, reminding him to show restraint, and silently hopes this behavior won't become a recurring issue. The group then breathes a collective sigh of relief, astonished as Jinwoo calmly tells them it's time to leave. They all feel relieved to leave, but before that, Jinwoo takes one final look at Barca's lifeless body. Outside the portal, Sang tells Bak it's time to return home, as a week has passed inside and the chances of survival seem slim. But Bak refuses to leave, unwilling to abandon his guild members. Then both men are stunned when the portal begins to open, and Bak confidently assumes it's Kim Chul emerging, certain his guild member managed to succeed. However, both are shocked when the figure stepping out isn't Kim Chul but Jinwoo, alive and unscathed. Sang's confidence proves correct, and Jinwoo stands as the undeniable victor. The gate then closes, and Bak is left wondering about Kim Chul's fate, and when he learns that only the low-ranked hunter survived, he is horrified and deeply curious about what transpired inside. Bak then approaches Jinwoo for answers, but Jinwoo, visibly exhausted, tells him to direct his questions to someone in his guild. Bak is taken aback, interpreting this as defiance, and he is stunned by the audacity, as Jinwoo wasn't asking, he was ordering, and worse, it could even be taken as a threat. Tensions rise as Blake grows more serious, emphasizing that 6 of his guild members are missing, making it his duty to find out what happened. Jinwoo, unfazed by the intimidation, calmly points out that he was the one who saved the 2 surviving members, which means Bak should be showing him gratitude instead. Bak takes a moment to cool down, realizing Jinwoo is right, and apologizes for his earlier demeanor. Then, with the situation diffused, Jinwoo takes Songyi home. After Jinwoo departs, Bake turns to Park, asking about Jinwoo and why he seems so angry. Park explains that Jinwoo's mood only changed after defeating the boss. Sang suggests that it must be due to exhaustion, noting that Jinwoo is usually a kind person. Then of course Bug gets intrigued and instructs Sang to do whatever it takes to recruit Jinwoo into their guild. Later, Jinwoo drops off Songyi at her home. She thanks him for everything and says she looks forward to seeing him again. Then as he leaves, Jinwoo reflects on the ordeal. Surprisingly, less than a day has passed since they were trapped in the gate, so he feels disappointed, having only earned a single dagger for all his trouble, and he concludes that Barca must have been far too high level to yield better rewards. Looking back, Jinwoo remembers trying to raise Barca as an immortal soldier. Despite being given 3 attempts, he failed to extract him. Jinwoo takes solace in gaining iron from the situation, but can't ignore the fact that it marks the 3rd time he has had to take human lives. The next day, Jinwoo meets Leo, but he's shocked by Leo's flashy and over-the-top attire. As they prepare for their mission, Jinwoo tells Leo that they need to pick someone up first. That someone turns out to be Songyi, much to Leo's surprise. Seeing how informal Jinwoo and Songyi are with each other, Leo grows suspicious. Then, when Jinwoo casually asks Songyi if she managed to get any sleep, Leo misinterprets the interaction. Worried about Jinwoo's intentions, Leo reminds him that Songyi is underage. Jinwoo brushes it off, clearly unaware of Leo's misunderstanding, which only fuels Leo's concern. Sometime later, Leo watches in awe as Jinwoo's soldiers brutally annihilate a group of powerful beasts. Leo can't figure out where on earth they came from, and Jinwoo recalls that Leo hasn't seen them yet. So Jinwoo reveals that they're a part of one of his baddest skills, but Leo has zero clue that this level of monstrous power is even possible. With the battle over, Jinwoo orders his army to begin mining the area for crystals. Leo, feeling dejected by his inability to match their efficiency, pleads with Jinwoo to at least let him collect the magic gems. Jinwoo isn't self-loving though, and one of his soldiers offers to share the work. Elsewhere, we see a man standing amidst the wreckage of a destroyed ship, and a frightened soldier begs for his life, but the man calmly tells him to relax. But the problem is they don't speak the same language, so after switching to broken English, the man explains that he's human and that all he wants is to go home. Back with Jinwoo, he celebrates with Leo after completing the 19 raids that were part of their agreement. And with the raids done, Leo's next step is to pass the written exam at the association to earn his guildmaster's license. And once he has the license, he'll finally be able to negotiate with his father. But as for Jinwoo, he announces that he plans to travel for a while, so Leo thinks that Jinwoo must be trying to get away from him, but Jinwoo denies it, saying he's just drunk. Leo, however, is used to being pushed away, especially by his older brother, who's 10 years older and has always been cold toward him, so they never did anything brotherly together. But by contrast, Jinwoo has helped Leo so much that Leo wistfully admits he wishes Jinwoo were his brother instead. Moved by Leo's pain, Jinwoo fills 2 cups and says that starting from today he will consider him his little brother. And that cool shit makes Leo is stunned but deeply touched. Meanwhile, the mysterious man from the shipwreck has been restrained, and investigators discuss his origins. He claims to be a foreign hunter who was trapped inside a gate 10 years ago and only recently found an exit that led to a gate in America. The investigators are skeptical, worrying that he might be a humanoid magic beast. To verify his identity, they've called in an S-rank hunter for questioning, and that Dan Hunter is Dongsu, and they're waiting on him to do the questioning because the only information they know is that the man's name is Ilfwan Sung. Later, Jinwoo tells his sister Gina that he'll be traveling for a week. She notes how busy he's been lately and teasingly asks who he'll be going with. Irritated by the question, Jinwoo curtly replies that he'll be going with a friend and leaves it at that. Soon after, he stands at the entrance to the Demon Castle, reflecting on how much he has grown since he barely survived his fight against Cerberus at level 20. But now with his level 3 times higher, Jinwoo is confident this challenge will go differently. Jinwoo then uses the key from his system to unlock the gate and enters the castle. Reviewing the quest objectives, he sees that his mission involves collecting demon souls. However, Jinwoo is shocked to learn that the system requires him to collect 10,000 souls, an amount he can hardly believe exists in the dungeon. But despite the overwhelming task, Jinwoo stays focused on his real objective, obtaining the ingredients for the elixir of life to save his mother. So no matter how many demons stand in his way, Jinwoo resolves to complete this damn quest. Elsewhere, Leo speaks with his father Han about taking over the guild. Leo is well aware that his older brother is also vying for control, but disagrees with his brother's approach. He argues that bringing in an outsider to run the guild is too risky for the company's future. Han, however, shifts the focus to Jinwoo, criticizing Leo for associating with him. Han recounts how Jinwoo was present at 3 highly controversial incidents: the double dungeon, the raid where Hung's team was wiped out, and the surveillance team Hunter incident involving murdered convicts. But despite the danger, Jinwoo miraculously survived all 3. Han also notes that Jinwoo was instrumental in helping Leo clear 19 raids to earn his guildmaster license, and also played a significant role in the Redgate incident, leading survivors to safety. So Han accuses Leo of using underhanded tactics by relying on Jinwoo to gain an advantage. While Leo admits his methods weren't ideal, he insists he knows what's best for the guild. But to Leo's surprise, Han suddenly agrees to let him pursue leadership, but with one condition. Han wants Jinwoo recruited to their guild. Han reveals that the White Tigers Guild has been trying to scout Jinwoo since the Redgate incident, recognizing his immense potential. So if Leo truly wants to lead, Han challenges him to secure Jinwoo's allegiance first. And Leo accepts the challenge and promises to make it happen. Back in the demon castle, Jinwoo realizes that despite defeating countless demons, he is unable to extract their shadows to add to his army, and he can't figure out why. He has taken down a massive number of them, yet it feels like all that effort might have been wasted. Just then, he receives an entry permit for the next floor, and a glowing light marks the way forward. Jinwoo marvels at the dungeon's immense size because it's essentially an entire city contained within a single building. However, all the walking is quickly becoming tiresome, but luckily Jinwoo summons the bear leader to carry him. The beast charges forward, effortlessly cutting through a sea of demons that block their path. Impressed by its sheer power, Jinwoo decides to name the bear tank. Elsewhere, a group of girls marvel at Chae as they admire her. Chae, however, recalls a conversation she had with Mr. Choi. He decided to keep the reports about the flying ants under wraps, but Chae felt they should go public. Mr. Choi explained that releasing that information would only cause widespread panic, and instead, they should focus on strengthening their guild, as they're already the largest domestic guild, and more power is the key to expansion. Back in the dungeon, Jinwoo has cleared even more demons. When he first received the key, he feared this might be an S-rank dungeon, but so far the demons he's faced are around high B rank. Their numbers are overwhelming, and they grow stronger with each floor, but by only killing the demons required to proceed, Jinwoo has made steady progress. Based on his experience with other structures, Jinwoo guesses that this castle likely has 100 floors, just like the Tower of Trials, so he wonders how strong he'll be by the time he reaches the top. Then as he reaches 4,000 souls collected, he reminds himself to track his supplies carefully. He also recalls his promise to Gina to return within a week, making this a race against time. Eventually, Jinwoo collects 10,000 souls, completing the quest's main requirement. However, his journey isn't over yet. As he progresses, he encounters a group of powerful monsters, and the leader's name appears in red text, indicating extreme danger. The monster's name is Vulcan, the boss-class leader of the lower floors. Elsewhere, we see that Sang searches for Jinwoo, only to learn from Gina that her brother is on a trip, but Sang isn't convinced. There are no records of him doing a raid or leaving the country, and the last trace the association has of him is right in the middle of the city, so the association can only speculate about where he's gone. Meanwhile, inside the dungeon, Jinwoo declares that he'll take on the big boss while instructing his army to wipe out the remaining demons. His soldiers immediately spring into action, swiftly taking down the horde, and with more points allocated to his intellect ability, Jinwoo can summon a larger army and maintain them more efficiently, and also the increase in magical power has made battling much smoother. Jinwoo then turns his attention to the boss-class demon and wonders if the giant beast is ever going to get up. Assuming it's just going to sit there, he's caught off guard when it suddenly moves with blinding speed to attack him. Jinwoo reacts just as fast, dodging the strike and countering with a damn powerful punch that sends the massive demon flying. Even Jinwoo is surprised by his own strength because all he did is punch the damn monster, so he wonders if he accidentally leveled up his power. However, Vulcan isn't finished, and it lets out a thunderous roar, so it seems it's about to shift into another form, reminding Jinwoo of his previous battle with Cerberus. The beast then charges at him with alarming speed, so Jinwoo calls out to Iron, who sends him a shield just in time. Jinwoo blocks the attack, but the giant launches a relentless barrage of punches. Jinwoo is stunned by how something so enormous can move so quickly. As the attacks continue, he manages to find an opening and moves behind the beast, only to discover that it can anticipate his movements. Vulcan is an absolute monster, and the only vulnerable-looking spot that Jinwoo can identify is his little head. Jinwoo then begins running, formulating a strategy to limit the beast's mobility. Spotting the perfect building nearby, he sprints toward it. Vulcan, too focused on chasing Jinwoo, crashes straight into the structure, and with the beast momentarily immobilized, Jinwoo summons his weapon, and in one decisive strike he slices through Vulcan's neck. The Lord of the Lower Floors is defeated, and Jinwoo receives an item called World Tree Fragment as his reward. Elsewhere, we see that Ilfwan is being interrogated by Dongsu, who has heard rumors that Ilfwan might be a talking magic beast, but Ilfwan denies the claim, offering to undergo any tests, including DNA analysis to prove his humanity. But despite this, Dongsu plays the role of a bad cop and shuts him down, ordering him not to speak unless asked a question. Dongsu is irritated that his fun has been spoiled and takes a look at Ilfwan's paperwork. Ilfwan then asks if he can say something, but Dongsu snaps at him and told to shut up. Ignoring the warning, Ilfwan presses on, asking how much humanity truly understands about gates and magic beasts. Dongsu has no idea what the hell Ilfwan is talking about, so Ilfwan elaborates, explaining that the dungeons, gates, and beasts are merely the tip of the iceberg. He warns that a power capable of triggering an ultimate catastrophe has already awakened. Ilfwan then reveals that he can't say any more, but insists that his only goal is to avert this disaster. Dongsu has had enough of what he considers nonsense and reminds Ilfwan that millions of hunters exist worldwide. He argues that if enough of them combine their strength, they can handle any threat. Ilfwan, however, reveals that sheer numbers won't matter against what's coming. He warns that those hunters will be devoured and turned into weapons against humanity itself. Dongsu, increasingly frustrated, dismisses Ilfwan's claims and turns to the absurdity of his backstory, specifically how a magic beast supposedly managed to have a wife and 2 kids. With mock curiosity, Dongsu asks what Ilfwan's son's name is, so Ilfwan replies that his son's name is Jinwoo. Dongsu's mood shifts to amusement as he smirks, informing Ilfwan that his son is dead. He refuses to answer any of Ilfwan's questions, adding that Ilfwan can ask his son all about it when they meet in the afterlife. Dongsu flexes his power while making this threat, but Ilfwan's expression darkens, his eyes filling with murderous intent. Back in the dungeon, Jinwoo's shadow army is ripping through yet another group of demons. Jinwoo acknowledges the leader of the group and remarks that the battle has become entirely one-sided, and he wonders if the demon leader is surprised by how terrifying his shadow soldiers are. But then it becomes clear to Jinwoo that even the undead can experience fear as the demon visibly trembles, and in a blink of an eye Jinwoo sliced the leader's head clean off. Then a notification pops up, revealing that Jinwoo has just defeated Metis the Guider of Souls and has leveled up even further. Back outside, we see that a part of the city lies in ruins after a massive disaster. An investigator remarks on how battles between S-rank hunters can reshape entire landscapes, obliterating everything in their path. He notes, however, that they're lucky this fight was contained to just this area because it could have been far worse. The destruction was so sudden and overwhelming that it seemed to happen in an instant. Surveying the aftermath, he reflects on how Dongsu was defeated so quickly that the damage barely had time to spread. Back in the dungeon, Jinwoo has run out of food, signaling that this is as far as he can go for now. He's reached floor 75, and while there are likely only 25 floors left, it's still quite a journey. The gains, however, have been worth it. From the skeleton he defeated, Jinwoo received a necklace, and from the beast on level 50, he obtained an earring. Both items are powerful on their own, but together they offer a set bonus, adding 5 points to all stats. Noticing one empty slot in the set, Jinwoo deduces that there's one more boss-level beast to defeat. He also earns an item called the Sphere of Avaricious, and while it doesn't benefit Jinwoo directly, it doubles the firepower of his magic soldiers when they wield it, making it a valuable asset. Finally, Jinwoo's latest reward is the chance to open the cursed random loot box. He feared he might never get another opportunity, so he's relieved to find a second key inside. But unfortunately, the key comes with no instructions, leaving him clueless about when or where to use it. For now, these rewards take a backseat to Jinwoo's main objective, gathering the ingredients for the Elixir of Life. He already has the World Tree Fragment from Vulcan and the Spring Water from Echo Forest after defeating Metis, but that's 2 out of the 3 ingredients needed to save his dying mother. So Jinwoo vows that the next time he returns to this dungeon, he will finish what he started and complete his mission.
Afterward, Jinwoo exits the instant's dungeon and reflects on his progress, and he realizes that he now only needs the purified Demon King's blood. Knowing how crucial it is, he concludes that he must be fully prepared before attempting to obtain it. Checking his stats, Jinwoo notices a significant increase in his level after his recent trip. However, he's still classified as an E-rank hunter, so while he can continue leveling up, his E-rank status prevents him from participating in high-level raid missions. So Jinwoo decides it's time to drop the facade and reveal his true strength by having his rank reassessed. The next day, Jinwoo heads to the assessment center for his rank reevaluation. Coincidentally, Kichul, Sang's ever-loyal sidekick, is also at the center, scouting for potential recruits. Kichul casually observes the hunters, guessing their ranks, when he spots Jinwoo among them. Recognizing him instantly, Kichul quickly calls Beak, informing him that Jinwoo has come to get reassessed. Upon hearing this, Beak drops everything and rushes to the assessment center. Meanwhile, Jinwoo waits for his turn. He overhears a nearby conversation between two hunters. One of them reassures the other, who is visibly nervous, telling him that the test is simple. The anxious man explains his predicament, revealing that he needs to earn money as a hunter to support his wife and daughter, who have threatened to leave him. The other guy tries to comfort him, saying that as long as his rank is better than E, he'll be fine. He even points out recruiters who are ready to make offers to anyone ranked above E. Hearing this, Jinwoo reflects on how this has always been the harsh reality for E-rank hunters. Moments later, he is summoned for his test. Inside, the examiner notes that Jinwoo is here for a reassessment and assumes he's familiar with the process. So she instructs him to place his hand on the black crystal and wait. Jinwoo complies, but the examiner immediately notices an issue. An error message appears on the machine. She asks him to try again, but the same error pops up. The examiner repeatedly resets the machine, yet the result remains unchanged. Her superior arrives, noticing her distress, and asks if something is wrong. She explains the situation, believing the machine must be malfunctioning, so the superior decides to conduct the test himself. But when the same error occurs, he realizes it's not a mechanical failure. The superior explains to the examiner that this error isn't due to the machine, but rather its inability to measure Jinwoo's magical power. His energy has surpassed the device's limit, rendering it incapable of providing an evaluation. Stunned, the examiner quickly pieces it together. Jinwoo has become this country's 10th rank hunter. Meanwhile, outside the evaluation center, Mr. Choi approaches Jinchul, inquiring about the progress on the winged ant's investigation. Jinchul explains that the investigative department has conducted an autopsy and is comparing the current sample with those from previous cases. However, they still require more time to reach a conclusion. Mr. Choi acknowledges this and changes the subject, bringing up the recent Red Gate incident. He mentions that the White Tiger Guild allowed a non-member to participate in the raid and even let him take down the boss. So he curiously asks Jinchul about the man's identity. Jinchul admits he has no idea, revealing that although he was present during the raid, he left before it ended. Mr. Choi is visibly disappointed by this and then notices a commotion inside the center. Deciding to investigate, the two head into the building, where they witness the aftermath of Jinwoo's failed rank reassessment. Everyone is buzzing about the machine's inability to evaluate his power. The examiner informs Jinwoo that he will need to return in 3 days for a re-evaluation using specialized equipment, as a standard machine is insufficient to measure his capabilities. Meanwhile, Kichul watches from a distance, realizing that Jinwoo is exactly as Sang anticipated. Recognizing the opportunity, he prepares to approach Jinwoo to strike up a conversation. Just then, Mr. Choi and Jinchul enter the building. Jinwoo instantly recognizes Mr. Choi as the renowned Ultimate Hunter, the country's strongest fire mage. Sensing Jinwoo's powerful aura, Mr. Choi quickly deduces that he is the source of the commotion. Eager to recruit him, Mr. Choi steps forward to introduce himself, but Jinwoo casually walks past him without a word. The entire room is stunned by this unexpected snub. Mr. Choi, bewildered, asks Jinchul if he forgot to introduce him properly, but Jinchul reassures him that he did. Despite this, Jinwoo still walked by without so much as a glance. Before anyone can say more, they realize that Jinwoo has vanished, leading them to suspect he must possess assassin-like skills. Moments later, Beak arrives at the center, panting from running there as fast as possible. Seeing him in such a hurry, Mr. Choi instantly pieces everything together. Jinwoo must be the hunter who cleared the Red Gate. This revelation solidifies his belief that Jinwoo is truly extraordinary. Choosing to leave things be for now, Mr. Choi exits the building. Meanwhile, Beak stands in shock, realizing that Mr. Choi has already discovered Jinwoo's involvement, and he laments that this was the last person he wanted finding out about the situation. At night, Jinwoo sits silently beside his mother, gazing at her peaceful figure. Before leaving the room, he whispers to her to wait for him just a little longer. Outside, he encounters Jinchul, who greets him with an unexpected confession. Jinchul admits that Jinwoo has completely changed his perspective. He explains that as part of the surveillance division, his job is to monitor hunters and bring those who break the law to justice. In the past, he had always been confident in his ability to judge people, but Jinwoo has shattered that confidence, proving him wrong. As Jinwoo walks toward the exit, he asks if he's under surveillance as well. Jinchul reassures him, saying they aren't monitoring him as a criminal. However, he notes that the surveillance team is tasked with controlling hunters, yet even they are powerless when it comes to S-rank hunters. Jinwoo nods and continues toward the exit, but Jinchul stops him, saying there's someone who wants to meet him. Moments later, Gunhee, the chairman of the Hunter Association, enters the scene. Introducing himself, Gunhee invites Jinwoo for a calm and friendly conversation. First, he congratulates Jinwoo on officially becoming an S-rank hunter. Jinwoo looks confused, prompting Gunhee to clarify, so he explains that the reassessment was merely a formality. The moment the machine failed to measure Jinwoo's power, his status as an S-rank hunter was essentially confirmed. So Jinwoo curiously asks why the reassessment was necessary if his rank was already decided. Gunhee smiles and explains that it provided the association with a grace period and opportunity to meet Jinwoo before anyone else could. Gunhee elaborates, revealing that while the association manages a vast number of hunters, only a few are truly exceptional. Most elite hunters tend to join guilds in pursuit of fame or money. He then points out that even Jinchul, one of their best experts, is only an orang, leaving the association in dire need of a more powerful figure. Gunhee then extends an invitation to Jinwoo, offering him the most prestigious position in the association. He explains that the government no longer holds real power in the country. It's the hunters who now dictate the balance of power. At the center of this dynamic are the 5 major guilds, massive organizations barely maintaining a fragile equilibrium. Gunhee warns that if Jinwoo joins any one of these guilds, the delicate balance will be thrown into chaos. Instead, he proposes a solution. Jinwoo should join the association and transform it into the 6th major power, capable of holding the guilds in check. Gunhee asks for Jinwoo's thoughts on the matter, and Jinwoo, intrigued by the opportunity, begins to seriously consider the offer. Jinwoo then takes note of Gunhee's remarkable presence. As the first S-ranked hunter in the country, Gunhee radiates overwhelming power and strength, with a physique that defies his age of over 80 years. Jinwoo realizes that despite stepping back from active duty, Gunhee still carries the strength to rival him. He knows his life could take a turn for the better if he accepts the invitation, but Jinwoo still refuses. Gunhee assumes Jinwoo, like many others, is choosing money, but Jinwoo surprises him by stating otherwise. Jinwoo explains that he longs for battle, declaring that the dungeon is where he truly belongs. Hearing this, Gunhee feels his old heart race, a sensation he hasn't experienced in years, and he muses that if he were 10 years younger, he would have loved the chance to fight alongside someone like Jinwoo. Realizing he can't sway Jinwoo's decision, Gunhee decides not to press further. Jinwoo thanks him for the offer and takes his leave. As Jinwoo walks away, Gunhee laments that even S-ranked healers can't reverse aging, leaving him stuck with a body past its prime. He then instructs Jinchul to cancel all his appointments for the rest of the day, wanting time to himself to reflect. Meanwhile, Jinwoo contemplates his next step. He knows he must grow stronger as quickly as possible to save his mother. His sense of urgency drives him forward, leaving no room for idleness. Across the globe in America, Dongsu awakens in a hospital bed, his body still battered from his recent encounter. The deputy director visits him, expressing the need to clarify one crucial detail. He asks Dongsu if Il F1 Sung is truly a magical beast, and without hesitation, Dongsu affirms that the power Il F1 displayed was anything but human, concluding that he must be a magic beast. Satisfied with the answer, the deputy director begins to leave, but Dongsu stops him, asking what actions are being taken against Il F1. The deputy director explains that while the administration is tracking him, there's no guarantee of success. After all, Il F1 defeated Dongsu, one of their strongest. Left alone, Dongsu recalls the haunting moment after his defeat when Il F1 warned him to stay away from his family or face relentless retribution. Even in hell, he will not leave his ass safe. Fueled by rage and humiliation, Dongsu resolves to prepare himself for a rematch, so he realizes he'll need a powerful artifact to stand a chance. It is explained that artifacts, in the hunter's world, are man-made relics of immense power, considered high-level equipment in the hunter world. Even the most skilled craftsmen struggle to create them. Meanwhile, we see Jinwoo scrolling through artifacts on an online auction site, but nothing catches his eye. Everything worth considering is outrageously expensive, and he knows he needs to be fully prepared before taking on the demon castle. He inspects his sphere of avaricious, which can double magical damage. He notes that while some market items can boost magic power by 20-30%, there's nothing else that can outright double it. Jinwoo realizes the sphere could fetch a massive price if sold, but its origins would raise too many questions, especially since he's only ranked E. So he thinks that if he had records of completing a rank A raid, selling it might be easier, but as an E-rank hunter, even participating in those raids is off-limits. Just then, his search leads him to a job listing from the Hunters Guild. They're hiring miners for a large-scale expedition, and to his surprise, there's no rank requirement. Meanwhile, Gunhee reviews Jinwoo's file. He notices how drastically different Jinwoo looks compared to 4 months ago, leading him to question if Jinwoo is a false ranker. However, Jinchul assures him otherwise, revealing that Jinwoo sustained several injuries while clearing low-rank dungeons. He then explains that Jinwoo became a hunter to fund his sick mother's care and pay his sister's tuition. Gunhee, impressed by his devotion to his family, learns that Jinwoo recently joined the Hunters Guild raid mission. Gunhee assumes Jinwoo couldn't resist the sign-up bonus, but Jinchul corrects him, explaining that Jinwoo joined as a miner, not part of the assault team. Gunhee is puzzled, unable to figure out Jinwoo's motives. Meanwhile, we see Jinwoo arrive at the gate site. He's accepted as a miner due to his strength, which stands out even among combat-type hunters. Jinwoo then explains that large-scale gates, such as rank A, require various teams. The assault team for fighting monsters, the mining team for extracting mana stones, and the recovery team for collecting monster corpses. So with so many people involved, the rewards are substantial. Meanwhile, inside the dungeon, we see the guildmaster Mr. Choi battling the monsters solo. He incinerates them with his powerful fire magic, while the tanks shield the team from his flames. The monsters are left charred, and Mr. Choi presses forward, hunting down the rest with ease. A short while later, the assault team exits the dungeon, and Jinwoo observes them, assuming they've cleared every monster except for the boss to keep the gate open. So he realizes how strong Mr. Choi must be to lead the team through a rank A gate without issues. The miners then gossip about the Hunters Guild's second-in-command as she emerges from the gate, revealing herself to be Chahi. Jinwoo then senses her powerful aura, and for a brief moment, she picks up on his. Though the sensation quickly fades, she wonders if it was her imagination. Jinwoo, impressed by her perception, decides to focus on his work. The miners then enter the gate and begin extracting mana stones, and while the others are focused on mining, Jinwoo's interest lies in the rank A boss. He wishes he could see it at least once. Overhearing miners whispering about his E rank, he shrugs off their comments, thinking that this kind of talk is universal. As he gets to work, his impressive strength draws attention, leaving the others questioning if he's truly E rank. After some time, the leader calls for a lunch break, so everyone else exits the dungeon, but Jinwoo stays behind, determined to finish his work before resting. The leader invites him to join them, but he declines, focused on clearing his mining area. As the others leave, Jinwoo's expression sharpens with determination, because he sees this as his chance to sneak a look at the boss. Sprinting toward the boss room, he wonders if it's stronger than anything he's ever faced. Though he knows fighting it would be a massive loss for the Hunters Guild, he can't suppress his excitement. Summoning his dagger, he moves closer, ready to enter. But just before stepping in, he's stopped by Chahi. Her piercing voice cuts through the silence as she asks, "What the hell are you doing here?" Jinwoo regrets his reckless decision and, letting out a defeated sigh, explains to Chahi that he had simply taken a wrong turn and somehow found himself in this situation. She questions whether he belongs to the mining team and bluntly warns him that this is the boss room, instructing him to step back immediately. Jinwoo silently acknowledges her impressive skills, noting how she approached without him even noticing until she spoke. Chahi then notices that the dagger she had seen earlier in Jinwoo's hand has vanished. Wondering if her eyes were just playing tricks on her, Jinwoo apologizes for wandering off, a trace of regret coloring his tone, and she snaps at him to get out immediately, lest he aggravate the boss. Jinwoo attempts to leave, but as he passes by Chahi, she spots something off and commands him to stop. When he halts, she takes a whiff of him. Surprised that he isn't reeking, she asks him if he's really a hunter, and upon confirming he is, and that he's ranked E, she wonders if something's wrong, yet she brushes it off, cautioning him to be careful on his way out. As he turns to leave, she ponders whether his lack of stench is due to his low rank, and in a quiet moment of introspection, she admits that he actually smells pretty damn nice. Afterwards, we see Jinwoo heading into the dungeon after his break, while his mining buddies are quietly envious that he got to meet Chahi when he got lost. They mention that they can only admire her from a distance and explain that she tirelessly patrols the area to shield them from the boss, even sacrificing her own rest time. Jinwoo realizes with a flicker of admiration mixed with wistfulness that this is why she was around the boss room, and the mining boss tells him that she's a bit uneasy around the scent of other hunters. The miners add that it's due to her unique constitution, which is why she always covers her nose with a handkerchief. Jinwoo then reflects on how her reaction to him was notably different, and he wonders if that means he doesn't carry the typical hunter scent. He recalls that the boss of the Red Gate said something similar, and he figures it must be because he's just a player. With a subtle mix of curiosity and uncertainty, he wonders what being a player actually means, though he has no damn clue. Later, we see him receiving his pay after the mining wraps up, and the miner boss expresses his gratitude as they finished ahead of schedule thanks to him. The miners then remark that he possesses a natural knack for this, and the boss even confesses that in all his time, he's never encountered anyone quite like him. He inquires if Jinwoo would consider working for him on a long-term basis, promising fair compensation, but Jinwoo replies that this is merely a one-off deal for him. The boss frowns at this, yet he still requests Jinwoo's assistance for one more day, explaining that tomorrow they have consecutive A and C rank missions. Jinwoo reflects that his reevaluation test is scheduled for the day after tomorrow, and he feels a surge of confidence having finally grasped the raid process today. Still, he's startled to learn that the Hunter Guild has lined up raid missions one after the other, planning to tackle 2 missions tomorrow. The boss informs him that the second assault team will be assigned to these missions, leaving Jinwoo thoroughly amazed. The boss boasts that the true strength of the Hunters Guild lies in having 2 assault teams capable of raiding rank A, Gate, something no other guild in the nation can manage. Energized by this revelation, Jinwoo agrees to return tomorrow as well, and the boss, clearly delighted, promises to speak to his superior about doubling his salary. Jinwoo modestly tells him not to worry, but the boss remains insistent. That night, we see Chahi, with a trace of concern, instructing someone to look into Jinwoo within the mining team, and she discovers that the person already knows him. He explains that Mr. Choi had tasked him with the same job the other day. However, he is unable to share any details, as every piece of information on Jinwoo has been sealed by the Blasted Hunter Association. He finds it utterly odd because he's never witnessed the association lock away data on someone who isn't a top-tier hunter, and before he can say more, Chahi abruptly ends the call. Lying in her bed afterward, she contemplates what all this might signify, thinking that although she's met many hunters so far, this is the first time she's encountered one who actually smells pleasant. The next day, we observe Jinwoo arriving at the gate site, and everyone greets him with open arms, their welcome stirring memories of his early hunting days and drawing a gentle smile to his face. They then decide to begin with the C-rank gate for the day, and we see Jinwoo working the mana stones like a damn human excavator. After wrapping up the work, he joins the others for a meal, and the boss heaps praise on him, claiming they managed to finish early and enjoy this lunch break solely because of his effort. The boss even wonders if Jinwoo truly doesn't want to stick with them, offering to pay him 5 times the usual rate, but Jinwoo flatly refuses the deal. Shortly after, Sun Cahoon, the captain of the 2nd Assault Team, shows up, asking if someone from the mining crew can lend a hand since their porter couldn't make it today. The boss suggests that the recovery team would be better at hauling things, but Cahoon fires back that they already mentioned being short-staffed. Clearly annoyed, the boss isn't thrilled with the suggestion, and Cahoon ups the ante by offering a risk allowance if they accompany his team into the dungeon. Yet the boss shoots him down, insisting that low-rank hunters like them aren't fit to serve as porters in rank. A dungeon, certainly no amount of cash would change that. Still, Cahoon makes one final pitch to see if anyone's interested, and Jinwoo boldly raises his hand. The boss tries to talk him out of it, but Jinwoo retorts not to worry, confident in his own guts. But despite their protests warning Cahoon that Jinwoo is new and clueless about what he's getting into, Cahoon simply asks for his rank. When he learns that Jinwoo is only rank A, he figures there's no harm in taking him along. They then head toward the gate, and Jinwoo can't help but notice that this gate is larger than the one from yesterday. Cahoon comments that while it might be bigger, its magical energy isn't as potent as the previous gates, reassuring him that it's not dangerous after all. The 2nd team wouldn't be there otherwise. Jinwoo soon spots that the team comprises 6 rank A hunters and 3 rank B hunters, a lineup that still qualifies as an assault team even without an S-rank member. As they step into the gate, Jinwoo muses that the magic here is likely weaker than before, yet he can't shake an ominous vibe reminiscent of the Red Gate. The team's healer tells him not to get worked up, assuring him that all the hunters here are incredibly capable and nothing will go wrong as long as he sticks with them. Meanwhile, Cahoon is convinced that once this raid mission is over, he'll be officially promoted to captain of the team. He believes he can handle it, even if he's not as formidable as their current captain or vice captain. Just then, they sense the presence of monsters ahead and immediately spring into action without waiting for further orders. They are then attacked by some dungeon jackals, but these critters are too weak and the team wipes them out in a matter of seconds. They are all surprised to see dungeon jackals here, and Jinwoo wonders if they're a rare sight. So the healer explains that they are merely C-rank monsters, and it's strange to encounter them in a dungeon since weak monsters like these are usually devoured by stronger ones. Jinwoo then notices collars around their necks, revealing that these jackals were being raised as hunting dogs by someone. Just then, more monsters approach, and they realize it's an army of high orcs. One of them attacks by throwing a spear, and Cahoon barely manages to block the strike. They charge at him, and the tank uses his taunt skill, but it proves ineffective as the monsters target those in the back. Although one of the hunters manages to repel them, the orcs take no damage due to their high magic resistance. The party's mage then binds one of the monsters, yet she can't hold it back because it's too strong, so the fire mage summons 2 fire soldiers to assist her. While the fire soldiers engage the orcs, the rest of the team fights fiercely. The orcs then manage to injure the team's martial artist, prompting them to ask the healer for help. Though she's already busy healing the tank, Cahoon thinks they are seriously outnumbered and fears this might be their end when the orcs even cut off one of the hunter's arms. Cahoon silently hopes that no one will die here, and the healer steps in to regenerate the lost arm entirely, while the bespectacled mage holds the orcs back. Then an orc suddenly appears behind the healer, and she seems to accept her impending doom until Jinwoo intervenes. Using his ruler's hand, he kills the orc by ripping out its spine. The healer is left wondering what just happened, while Jinwoo employs his stealth skill to aid the other hunters, attacking the orcs to weaken them without being noticed. The hunters are taken aback as the orcs start to falter all of a sudden, but they seize the opportunity, launching a full-scale offensive and slaying the orcs one after the other. Jinwoo thinks that he doesn't really want to stand out as an outsider outsider here, yet he refuses to let anyone die on his watch. Quietly, he continues to weaken the monsters from the shadows, and the other hunters manage to take care of the rest, eventually wiping out all damn the orcs. Cahoon then checks in with everyone, relieved to hear that they're all okay. The healer mentions that something odd occurred during the fight, and Cahoon adds that he too felt the monsters weaken dramatically all of a sudden. He questions the mages if they were behind it, but they reply that they weren't and that such a feat shouldn't be possible without an assassin-type hunter. They decide not to dwell on it, reasoning that luck was on their side since they won in the end. Meanwhile, the bespectacled mage thinks that their porter seriously underestimated the team. He should have known that his stealth skill would be detected with a magic caster in the mix, choosing to keep quiet about it. She figures he must have his reasons, and she owes him at least that much for helping them survive. The hunters then turn to their captain, asking whether they should press on or fall back. They point out that tackling a dungeon like this would at least require 2 more healers and 3 more mages, with a strong suggestion to retreat. The leader takes a moment to ponder the situation. Jinwoo, understanding the reluctance to charge ahead in a dangerous dungeon, silently hopes that the captain will make the right call. In the end, the leader decides to withdraw, much to everyone's relief. When they reach the gate leading outside, they notice that it's sealed by a barrier, a feature that wasn't there when they first entered the dungeon. The mages then step forward to remove the barrier, glad they chose to retreat, as this dungeon clearly houses an entity capable of such advanced magic. Almost immediately, everyone senses a surge of powerful magic, sparking the question of whether this was the boss. As the mages hurry to dismantle the barrier, Jinwoo wonders aloud why such a massive magical fluctuation wasn't detected while they were outside after all. Even a B-rank hunter should have picked it up. Just then, the mages suddenly start bleeding profusely, and everyone realizes that someone had cursed the barrier as a sneaky trap. The captain urgently orders one of the hunters to cast some divine magic, but when no one pays attention, he turns around to see what's happening only to find an entire army of orcs looming behind them. They count roughly 50 orcs, and the leaders from both sides step forward, meeting halfway. The orc leader tries to communicate, but his words are unintelligible until the orc shaman takes over his body and speaks in clear human language. The shaman introduces himself as Kargalgan and tells Cahoon that he has been eagerly awaiting the humans. Cahoon then asks if Kargalgan was the one who sealed off the entrance, and the shaman confirms it. Curious, Cahoon asks if there's any being stronger than him in this dungeon, but Kargalgan replies there isn't and challenges them to choose, come face him or perish at the hands of his soldiers. Without a second thought, Cahoon opts to meet the shaman head-on, and the orcs promptly lead the way. But before that, Cahoon confides in Jinwoo that their plan is to launch an attack on the boss as soon as they reach its chamber. This distraction should briefly disable the barrier. He instructs Jinwoo to use that opening to escape and alert the other assault team. Jinwoo can't help but wonder if they are all just signing up for a death wish, but Cahoon bluntly reminds him that their mission is to shut the gate, not necessarily to return alive, and the healer hands Jinwoo a short will, asking him to deliver it to her family if anything goes south. Though Jinwoo accepts it with heavy heart, he hopes it never comes to that. She urges him to ensure his own escape while they complete the mission. Jinwoo reflects that this dire situation feels reminiscent of the double dungeon, but these people are completely different from what he's faced before. At the same time, outside the gate, Chahi is frantically searching for Jinwoo, wondering if he might have bailed on the team. When the mining boss notices her distress, she inquires about Jinwoo and learns that he has entered the gate as a porter. Back inside, Jinwoo and the rest of the group finally arrive at a throne room, where they are greeted by Kargalgan and a massive, terrifying horde of orcs. The scene then shifts to outside the gate, and we see Chahi standing deep in thought, perplexed as to why the hell Jinwoo had chosen to enter as a porter, especially considering he only had one life to spare. She vividly recalled seeing him just yesterday, poised before a boss room with a weapon in hand, a memory that now cast a suspicious shadow over him. Determined to uncover the truth, she informed the leader of the miners that she was going to venture inside for an investigation and asked if they had any real weapons available. The miner leader could only produce a pickaxe, which he handed over to her without much question. But when Chahi inquired if there was anything more suitable, He sheepishly admitted that his arsenal consisted solely of mining tools, with nothing that could be classified as a proper weapon. Although Chahi initially considered proceeding without any armament, the leader pressed her, questioning whether she could truly manage without a damn weapon. So she shyly accepted the pickaxe and prepared to head inside. At the same time, the hunters inside the gate are stunned by the sheer number of high-level orcs, convinced that if so many of them emerge, they could easily raise entire cities. They notice that the 4 generals of the orc army are even mightier than the rest of the horde, and the boss orders the orcs to be silent. The orcs immediately cease their thumping, and Kihun deduces that their mission must be to close the gate, which means they have to defeat the dungeon boss. Then, in a dramatic turn, the boss removes his mask, and they are all taken aback by his overwhelming magical aura. They're practically crapping their pants at how insignificant they feel compared to him, and Kihun boldly asks why he has gathered them here. The boss coldly informs them that they are nothing more than entertainment for him, promising to kill them off one by one as the perfect spectacle to amuse his soldiers. Kihun and his comrades are hit with despair upon hearing this. Unable to believe that their resolve is treated as mere amusement, he laments that they're nothing but disposable toys to be discarded. Meanwhile, noticing Jinwoo among them, the boss spots that something strange has snuck in with the humans. Unbothered, Kihun charges at the boss to attack, ordering the rest to join in, but finds that everyone is frozen with fear. Undeterred, he assaults the boss on his own, only for the boss to counter with a magical shield. The boss then unleashes his gravitational magic, slamming Kihun onto the floor and even forcefully against the ceiling like a ragdoll, repeating the vicious maneuver several times. His teammates watch in horror as Kihun is battered, but before it's too late, Jinwoo intervenes to save him and gently lays him on the ground. Although Jinwoo thinks he shouldn't meddle because this is a mission for the Hunters Guild, he cannot sit back while the entire assault team is in peril. One of the orcs then lunges at him, but he swiftly halts its advance and obliterates it with his signature ruler's hand. He then turns to Kihun and coolly asks if he could take charge of handling all the magical beasts in the area, to which Kihun, with no other option, happily agrees. The boss, watching all this shit, deeming his enemies display nothing more than arrogant outbursts of raw magic, while Jinwoo admits that it was the first time he had encountered such overwhelming power, even if their roles naturally pit them against one another. And with grim determination, he summoned his shadow army, vowing to end the boss's reign once and for all. Meanwhile, outside the dungeon, where the surveillance team headed by Jinchul has gathered at the gate, the miners murmur in confusion about the team's presence, and Jinchul himself wonders aloud why Jinwoo has been working as a miner here for the past 2 days. When the miner leader questions the situation, Jinchul presses for Jinwoo's whereabouts. At that moment, a disgruntled miner who had long complained about Jinwoo's inexplicable actions stepped forward and declared that he had sensed something off about the man from the start. Ignoring the miner's shit grumbling, Jinchul asked the leader to pinpoint Jinwoo's location and soon learned that he had slipped inside the gate in the guise of a porter. Puzzled, Jinchul reflects on how Jinwoo first appeared as a miner and then shifted roles, remarking that now that Jinwoo has achieved S-rank status, every move he makes is under close surveillance. So Jinchul laments that he wishes Jinwoo would at least be more conscious of his actions. The miner leader, still bewildered, asks what is truly going on, and Jinchul tells him to wait until tomorrow's news for clarity. As he moves closer to the gate, the miner leader reveals that Chahi had posed a similar question and went inside the gate not long ago. But before Jinchul could probe further, he suddenly detected an unusual aura emanating from the dungeon gate, so he immediately ordered his team to perform another magical power test on the dungeon. And at the same time, inside the gate, Chahi is astonished by the sheer number of high-ranking orcs that have been slain. Unable to comprehend how Kihun's party managed to decimate so many foes, she resolves to hurry toward the boss room, especially after detecting that terrifying surge of magical energy. The scene then shifts to the boss deriding Jinwoo for confronting his forces with such a pitiful number, prompting Jinwoo to amplify the strength of his shadow army using his newly learned skill Monarch's Domain. He explains that this is the latest ability he acquired, and it makes his shadow soldiers have grown significantly more potent, and he gained it after the battle at the demon's castle. Meanwhile, the other hunters are utterly confused by the turn of events as the High Orcs launch an attack on Jinwoo's troops. Yet his generals prove so formidable that they slice through the orcs as if performing routine pest control. Jinwoo is busy helping to whittle down the enemy ranks, and the hunters note that his movements mirror those of Chahi. They remain baffled as to why someone with his power would initially come in as a mere porter. As the battle rages on, Jinwoo becomes acutely aware that the strength of his infantry is only on par with that of a B-rank hunter. His soldiers are falling at an alarming rate, 4 to 5 casualties for every orc slain. Realizing that unless he cuts down the orc horde swiftly, his own mana reserves will be drained, Jinwoo braces for more. But at that moment, the boss unleashes a searing fire spell aimed directly at his shadow soldiers, jeering that Jinwoo should not get too full of himself. Undeterred, Jinwoo retorts that his soldiers possess the uncanny ability to resurrect without end. Not satisfied with that, the boss then escalates his assault further by launching his gravity magic at Jinwoo and his soldiers, and he boasts that he will keep annihilating his forces until his magical reserves run dry. But despite repeatedly wiping out Jinwoo's army, Jinwoo continuously resummons his troops without pause, and amid this freaking relentless cycle, Jinwoo wonders if the boss is deliberately keeping his distance with his long-range magical assaults, while the boss muses over how long Jinwoo can possibly sustain this damn futile resistance. Outside the gate, the results of a magical power test come in, revealing that this dungeon is perilously close to an S-rank gate. Jinchul immediately instructs the miners to contact the leader of the Hunters Guild without delay, and the surveillance department mobilizes to support the assault team. Inside the dungeon, the boss scoffs at Jinwoo, asserting that both the might and sheer numbers of his own army far exceed those of Jinwoo's. As Jinwoo watches in dismay, he realizes that his magical energy is depleting rapidly. In a swift move, he drinks a mana potion to replenish his strength and announces that he's about to reveal his true potential as a freaking necromancer. With a determined gesture, he raises all the fallen high orcs from the dead, turning them into his undead minions, and boldly declares to the boss that he intends to add the boss himself and his generals to his growing legion. Taken aback, the boss questions whether Jinwoo might be some sort of lord. Puzzled as to why such a being would even be present in this place, he reflects that ever since he first opened his eyes here, the only command resonating in his mind has been to kill any damn humans. Dismissing any deeper reasons, he decides to follow that directive without question, and thus he sends his generals into battle. The scene then shifts to the Hunters Guild, where Mr. Choi is astonished to discover that the gate's power is nearly at S rank level. He reasons that the evaluation must be accurate, otherwise Cahoon and his team would have already emerged from the dungeon. Realizing that a dungeon break at this level could trigger an incident reminiscent of the Jeju Island disaster, he is relieved that there is still time to avert catastrophe. Mr. Choi then instructs his assistant to mobilize every hunter in the guild, prompting a message to be sent to all a rank and above hunters. He even mentions that they might have to call on the White Tiger Guild and the Fiend Guild for additional support. Although the assistant is surprised by this suggestion, Mr. Choi insists that for now, all they can do is to prevent things from spiraling further out of control. Back to the boss room, the battle intensifies as Jinwoo's general duels the orc commander while his own forces overwhelm the enemy. But to his dismay, the boss watches his own generals struggle and fall, prompting additional hunters to rush to Jinwoo's aid. However, the boss refuses to let them interfere and quickly injures several of them with his curse's magic. Rising from his damn high and mighty stance, the boss sneers that he will make Jinwoo regret ever challenging him. He casts a barrage of curses meant to inflict blindness, lethargy, and slumber on Jinwoo. But thanks to his exceptional health and longevity skills, the curses have no effect. Jinwoo then coolly explains that he's immune to such toxins and promptly summons his mages. In response, the boss erects a formidable magical shield to block the assault, but the mages counter by launching a fireball enhanced by the Sphere of Avaricious. The blazing orb tears through the boss's barrier, striking him hard and fueling his anger. Just then, Chahi bursts onto the scene, her eyes wide with shock as she surveys the chaotic melee. She notes that several hunters are down, and Cahoon, for instance, is injured but being hastily healed by the medic. When she asks what hell is going on, the fighters can only offer confused glances. The boss then ramps up his assault, channeling strengthening magic and other spells to transform himself into a giant, intent on crushing Jinwoo underfoot. Jinwoo, however, nimbly dodges the massive blows, remarking disdainfully that he's never cared for giants, likely due to a previous debacle in the double dungeon. In retaliation, the boss unleashes a torrent of fire spells around him, indiscriminately wiping out friend and foe alike. Enraged, the boss taunts Jinwoo, questioning whether he still believes he can stand up against such might. In a bold move, Jinwoo lunges forward and stabs the boss in the eye, declaring that by turning into a giant, the boss has only made himself a bigger, more vulnerable target, and he adds coolly that a lone mage without any guards stands no chance against an assassin-type hunter. The boss fires back with more searing fire spells, but Jinwoo deftly evades every blast and counterattacks with his dagger, only to find that his blade barely makes a dent. Realizing brute force alone won't cut it, Jinwoo summons his ruler's hand, using it to snatch up a set of chains. With a swift, decisive motion, he binds the boss and hurls him around the room, leaving the monstrous adversary reeling at his feet. Just then, Jinchul arrives at the scene, and taking in the astonishing display, tells Chahi that he had come to lend support when he noticed an outpouring of potent magic from outside, but now he feels his help might no longer be necessary. Noticing that even the head of surveillance seems to acknowledge Jinwoo's power, Chahi wonders just how formidable he must be. She asks Jinchul what he thinks of Jinwoo, to which he replies with a shrug, admitting that he doesn't really know him all that well. Meanwhile, Jinwoo tells the injured boss that his fate was sealed the moment his own guards fell in battle. Refusing to accept defeat, the boss snarled, but Jinwoo wasn't finished yet, and he called upon the spirits of his former guards to finish the job. And after exchanging some decisive blows, the boss fell, and with great fear in his eyes, he looked up and saw his former generals ending his life. After emerging victorious, Jinwoo felt a surge of power and ascended a few levels, then proceeded to extract the boss's soul, a move that shocked everyone. After rising up, Jinwoo jokingly comments that he finally becomes now much more docile after he turns into a shadow. Then, while performing the extraction, he realized he could name the soul. Since the boss's true name had escaped his memory, he decided to dub him Fang. Upon inspecting Fang's essence, Jinwoo discovered that the fallen foe held the Elite Knight rank, a classification he'd never encountered before, though he recognized it as something truly remarkable. He also notes that the High Orcs proved to be a significant gain. Just as Jinchul steps forward, up until this point, Jinwoo had been so engrossed in the soul extraction that he hadn't noticed Jinchul's arrival. When other hunters begin clamoring for an explanation of what just transpired, Jinchul's team intercedes on his behalf, declaring that Jinwoo is currently the association's top secret. They instruct everyone to keep the day's events confidential, explaining that Jinwoo unleashed the power of an S-rank hunter solely to protect them. With that, Jinchul and his team escort Jinwoo out, but before parting, Kahun and his comrades express their heartfelt gratitude, and Jinwoo returns the healer's will to her. Then, as Jinwoo was departing, Chahi tried to catch up with him to speak, but the bespectacled mage interrupted and asked why she was lugging around with a pickaxe. But Chahi shyly wonders if he would think she is weird, so the mage asks who she is talking about, and Chahi shyly replies no one. Later, Mr. Choi receives a report of the incident and is utterly astounded by the multitude of abilities Jinwoo has displayed. He asks Kahun to compare the strength of Jinwoo with his own, noting that while typical raids rely on the coordinated efforts of many hunters, Jinwoo defies that norm by working alone. Kahun then challenges Mr. Choi, asking whether he truly believes that he can conquer the most difficult dungeon on his own. Mr. Choi, with a wry smile, remarks that he doubts it, and then says that his title of Ultimate Hunter might now be little more than a joke. And as Mr. Choi leaves, Kahun tells him that he must recruit Jinwoo at all costs, and Mr. Choi announces that he will do his best. Meanwhile, Jinwoo meets up with Leo, inquiring about how matters with the guild master have unfolded. Leo fills him in on the details, and the scene then shifts to the Hunter Association. There, a famous actor named Lee Min-seung has just awakened as a hunter, and the media has swarmed the area to cover the breaking news. Min-seung, reveling in the attention, believes himself to be the star of the day, basking in his newfound fame. That concludes this episode. Thank you for watching. If you want to see the next part, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell.